Namato Ratanatayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening, everyone. So today is Saturday the 5th of September, 2020. And this is Ajahn Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. So I'm here with you today again. And thank you everyone for joining with me and listening. And thank you all the comments. Some are nice, others are quite reflective. So thank you. Hi Margaret, I hope you're having a wonderful time, a good moment. So today is a Saturday. Center was a little busy with the people and quite worrying as well because of crowds, and as a result a few members left a little early just to minimize the crowd at the center. However, thank you everyone for coming and being a part of the center. So today again I will be talking on the same theme of effort that the Buddha laid down. And when we and yesterday I was explaining the first factor or first factors within the right effort, the Samma Vayama, which is the prevention from arising any unwholesome thoughts or unwholesome things. And when we look at the Buddha's teachings, what it appears that when we look at it, Buddhism is something that you can change. You can change your destiny, and you don't have to wait for anyone to change your destiny. So in the past, people were thinking that our destiny is defined by an external being. That was one thought. It's called Isariya, or the God, or the external powers take control over us and they destined our future. And there was a second strand, was that everything defined by the karma or the action that we have performed. So as a result of that, there were two sets of beliefs. That one set is we have to rely on external power to release us or find the right destination, and another one was that whatever one has done, there will be result and one hasn't got any choice to change it. And both, according to Buddhism, both views are not relevant to change our destiny, our aims. So that's why Buddhism is a philosophy or a way of life that teaches us to find our own ways and change our destiny. And that changing our destiny is again not because of the Buddha or not because of any of your teachers said so. It's you that you will change. That's one of the teachings of the Buddha to the venerable monks, that venerable monks simply present the teachings of the Buddha and just present you what the Buddha said and what is the right and the moral values that one should practice in order to be liberated. But they don't have any rights or any what's called the power over anyone to change them from one religion to another or one organization to another organization. It's all up to each individual's wish, each individual's understanding, and then they will change to the thing that they like it. So that's why it is not a religion or a form of a faith that converting from one religion to another, but it is a conversion from ignorance to the novel, or ignorance to the knowledge. And that knowledge confirms your confidence, your faith, and your belief in the teachings, in the methods that you have been practicing. At the very moment once you got that path, then basically you are following your own destiny by your own action that you have performed. That's why Buddhism is also known as the Viryavada, which means the teachings that explains or that encourage each individuals to put an effort to change your destiny. If we can't change our destiny, then simply means that there is no way that we will be changing. We will be slave after slave to our own self, or to the God, or to such a external power. And the whole Buddha's teachings will be flopped if we cannot change. And over the period of a time that eons after eons, that the Buddha perfected his perfections simply from his own effort to change. And over those period, what he did was to prevent from arising any unwholesome thoughts or unwholesome mental states, and developing any good states or wholesome thoughts for the perfecting his perfections, whether it's the 6 perfections or the 10 perfections. And finally, because of his perfections, he was able to be the Buddha. And the becoming the Buddha, again, it's not because the external power that imposed or given or power influence him, but he was himself able to change by himself. That's why it's based on those facts and stories. What we can understand that Buddha's teachings is simply the effort, explaining about the effort that we can change. And basically, when we look at ourselves, we all change every moment, every time. Our perception changes, our attitude to the things changes, our attitude to our own life changes, and our attitude to the external world changes. And all based on when we hear the reasonable reasons to believe in, and that makes sense. And with that, we change. And that changing changes our behavior, changes our actions, changes the way we speak, and changes the way we act and the way we think. And with this, the Buddha's teachings is that presenting to you to understand and change. Having said that, having heard the Buddha's teachings doesn't mean that everyone will be able to comprehend, but it takes time and perfections. Even when we look at the Buddha's life, we see that although Buddha was giving teachings for hundreds or maybe 500 or thousands of people, sometimes only 1 or 2 people were able to be enlightened. And again, these all based on each individual's effort to understand and the paramitas or the perfections that has been perfected. So the perfections and this effort that one has applied, basically the first thing what we have to do is to understand that whenever any unwholesome states of the mind arises, then we need to prevent from it. And that is the first strata of this right effort, that prevention from arising any unwholesome thoughts or unwholesome state of the mind. And here, when it talks about unwholesome, it is talking about the 5 hindrances, which are the unwholesome state of the mind, which prevents from doing good things, and which prevents from cultivating our mind. And in relation to the 5 hindrances, about 2 months ago, I have explained each and every individual 5 hindrances for five or maybe about a week, which you can go and listen in our YouTube on Varapunya Buddhist Meditation Center YouTube channel. And there is a playlist which I have separated just on the topic of the 5 hindrances. If you listen that, then it gives you a clear understanding that why it is a main root cause of arising of unwholesome thoughts, unwholesome state of the mind, that prevents from cultivating a right effort to find the liberation. And then someone may have asked, why do we have to put an effort to do something good in order to be liberated? And in relation to that, the Buddha said that the whole world is a burning. And this burning is not because the external fire that is burning the world, but Buddha was pointing at that the 6 senses are burning. When 6 senses come to contact with the outside world, it simply generates the desire, cravings, and with that we are all burning. And this became the prime teachings of the Buddha to realize the whole world, and even the concept of the world is basically based on the 6 senses. And having heard the teachings of the Buddha on the basis of the 6 senses that burning, there was a man whose name was Uttara, who was the followers of something like a Parasajiva, and who was one of the very famous masters at that time. Parasarya was also a well-known scholar at that time, and Uttara, a man who was a very close disciple of the Parasarya. And then he comes to the Buddha and had a conversation with the Buddha about the burning world. At that time, the Buddha, when the Uttara came to speak or conversation with the Buddha about the burning world and the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind constantly burning along with this, the external world. And the Buddha said that, thus your teacher teaches you about this burning or controlling the senses. And then the Uttara said to the Buddha, replied to the Buddha, saying that, yes, my teacher Parasarya also teaches us how to control the senses. And the Buddha asks back, saying that, how your teacher teaches you to control the senses. And he said that my teacher teaches to control the sense by closing my eyes or closing your ears, nose, tongue, and body. And the Buddha replied that, that means that someone who is blind, they have controlled their senses. Someone who is deaf, they have controlled their ear senses, and so on. If all the 5 senses are disabled, does that mean that one has controlled the senses? And then that moment, Uttara was just out of the word. And then rather than Buddha replying to the Uttara, Buddha simply pointed to the Ananda and saying that it is not the right way of controlling the senses. It is not the way that one who is disabled, or one whose all the senses are disabled, will not have the hindrances, a sensual pleasure, the wish or desire to the sensual pleasure, or the thought of ill will, or the thought of a restlessness and a doubt, and etc. The Buddha further instructed that whenever I comes to contact with the senses, I come to contact with the outside world, the form, the color, that moment, if untamed mind look at it, then that simply generates towards the liking and disliking. And when there is a liking and a disliking, the desire arises, and that desire simply burns the entire human nature, human mind, wanting to be delightful in it, and wanting to consume it and go on with that, and we completely forgot the reality as they are. But the very moment when once the mind is trained, an ability to keep in a balance called a upekha, in a balance, having a one-pointed and a balanced mind, there won't be any liking and disliking, or the mind which is liking and disliking. And that's how one would overcome, and that's how one would control and overcome any defilements that may creep in. And that's how Buddha instructed to control the senses. And here again there was a simile saying that it's not like a tortoise take its head and legs inside the shell and a safe, but it's about when you are out there, an ability to be mindful of every action that you are taking whenever the senses comes to contact with this other external senses. And when we are untrained or untamed mind we have, at that moment when eye comes to contact with the objects, or this all the five senses comes to contact with the external world, that moment these hindrances will play a great part, a great influence in our way, the way we define it, the way we understand, and which obviously is very easy to understand. We like to be entertained. We like to see something very amusing. If something is always same thing, we feel bored. Even the same song, if you are listening it for again and again, you feel bored. You need another exciting song. Or even the food that you eat, doesn't matter how delicious that food is, if you are eating it for every day, you feel bored of it. Same with the same smell. Doesn't matter how good that smell is, if you are having that smell every day, then again, that brings boredom. And similar to all the other five senses. But the very moment the practice of controlling the senses allows us to be mindful of these five hindrances, that whenever it comes to contact with us, we are able to be mindful of it and not letting it to take control. And whatever we are focusing on or aiming to, we will be able to concentrate on that purely. Otherwise, we will be carried away with the entertainments, with the sounds and like that, and we will be failed to perform the act that we're supposed to be acting to find the way. So that's why the prevention is basically here coming from this control the senses, called the Samvara Padhana, or the controlling the senses. And when we are controlling our senses mindfully, then we will not be under the control of the senses that enforced by the hindrances, and gradually we will be able to overcome all the hindrances that hinder our practice. When we think of the meditation, very moment we know that the meditation is good and we sit down and meditate, how long do we manage to be able to be mindful of the breath or the primary object? Within a couple of breaths, it just goes off to think about something else. The hindrances just comes and hinder our practice. And similarly, in your day-to-day life, in our life again, sometimes we have an agenda or aims and objectives to complete. At that moment when you go out and somehow you saw something is beautiful along the way, and rather than you're continuing towards the goal or towards the end, you just pop into somewhere or just forget about the aims and objectives, but you delighted in the moment of this entertainment, then the success won't come. Like when you are going to the city to buy something, then you're supposed to be going straight away to that shop and get that thing and buy and come back. But normally what happens in a normal life, that the people will like to go and window shopping. Although it is known as a window shopping, but over the time when you are going into the shops after shops, you have already spent probably a couple of £100. And that's why you are spending a couple of hundreds of pounds, despite that wasn't in your list. And that's simply because this kama chanda, or the sensual pleasure, now when eye comes to contact with the beautiful object, we would like to have it, and you will forget all that you are not there for something that is new, but something for that you have already planned. And again, you will forget that whether you need it or not. And you'll try to make all the possible reasons to make it happen, that why you should have it. And often cases what I have experienced that after you bought it and come back home and you will look at the items that you have bought, and sometimes people regret that, oh, why should I buy that one? Why should I buy this one? I already have it, and there are a couple of items that I haven't used it at all. And I have heard, particularly this time of a COVID, people were stuck at home and nothing to do, and so bored, so try to clear up the house under the roof or under the what's called basement and the cupboards, and they have discovered that there are so many things that's untouched for many years, even forgotten, and finally they have realized it, that there are these stuffs just hidden away. And I'm pretty sure that this is very common to all of us. And we have hidden away so many valuable things, or even so many beautiful things, that we never used it and we never thought of it. But constantly with this concept of going for the window shopping, we adding up more and more and more and more. Furthermore, we are so much influenced by the adverts that encourage us to buy, encouraged us why you should have, and if you have it, how beautiful or how valuable it is to be. I remember a few years ago, about 2 years ago, one of the girls came and she showed me this one ring, the bangle, and this was Channel, the company called Channel. When I look at it, I found it that it's just like a piece of plastic, but there's just the mark is a channel. And when I asked how much was it, and it was almost £100, and I thought, why you're spending for the plastic and just for the name on a channel for about £100? But when she told me that when she bought it, it was like under the influence of I must have it, and she had the money, so she never had a second thought why I should have it. And after she bought it, and a couple of months later found that she doesn't want it, and she left it in a cupboard for many years, like that. So it is to us as well. We have so many things that we hidden away and under the bed or inside the cupboards or basement or loft. And why it is happening? And that's simply because by past we like to buy, we like to hear. So we simply, under the influence of the first hindrance that's called sensual pleasure, and we just go on with that, and we are unable to prevent from it. So that's why next time, whenever you go to the shoppings or whenever you go to the window shopping, be mindful and checking your every thoughts, that why I need it, why I'm buying it, and with that you will be preventing from buying things that you don't need it, and that also helping you to distill in your day-to-day life. And whenever there's any unwholesome thoughts arises or unwholesome state of a mind generates, just know that and prevent from it arising and influencing us. And gradually what happens is we will be able to dive inside our consciousness to find the latent defilements, and gradually it will be pops up like a bubble in a water and then just disappears. So I offer this as a tonight's reflection, and thank you everyone for listening, and may you all be well and happy, and may the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you. And in a few moments time we will have chanting and guided meditation. Until then, thank you and good night. See you shortly. Sadhu.